Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today, we learn what it means to be on the road with Mobilize Recovery. It's a nationwide tour that's changing the way America thinks about recovery. Grassroots Coordinator Aaron Kucharski joins us to talk about harnessing the power of the recovery community and building healthy communities. Aaron, welcome to the show. I invite you to share your story and how Mobilize Recovery is making a difference.
Thank you so much, Peter. I appreciate any time I get to come chat about Mobilize Recovery, because a lot of times I'm really kind of working with these like local groups on each one of the stops, and it's this one-on-one sort of connection. And so I appreciate you kind of creating the space to have those conversations. For me, on the personal side of things, I've been in recovery since September 6th of 2003. I haven't had a drink or a drug since that date. And I would have to say that I was very quiet about that for about 3 years. The first 3 years of my recovery, I didn't really talk to too many people outside of the recovery circles. I think that for a lot of us that go through addiction, or alcoholism or mental health sort of issues, there's that shame piece, there's that stigma piece that gets attached, and it's not popular, right, to go shout that from the mountains. And then for me, what happened is that I started to understand that you really can start talking about recovery to inspire others that might be struggling or don't know what recovery looks like. I started to become a little bit more courageous in terms of who I talked to and when I disclosed that publicly. And for me, it was a freeing experience. And what I found in that is that there are millions of people in this country that are in recovery, many of which are open about it. I think that you've kind of seen like a change over the years where, you just check social media and people are celebrating, recovery times, and it is more open than it used to be. And I think that I really fell in love with this growing recovery advocacy movement, where more and more people are looking at the fact that silence around these issues really has helped create some of that negative public perception. And so by stepping into the light, and sharing our experiences, and sharing the solutions in a way that inspires others to look at those solutions, decision makers, to look at those solutions, I've seen that really kind of take shape over the years in doing some of this advocacy work. And so I think for me, recovery for quite a while was quite personal, and then really started to blossom into something that I really felt comfortable with in sharing with others, especially when I saw some of the policies that might discriminate somebody from getting support, or like why do people not come into recovery, or why is it hard to sustain recovery? Well, because a lot of things haven't been advocated for yet. And so the work that I do with Mobilize Recovery really works to open that sort of piece up in folks in terms of training and giving people skills and thinking about how people can go about making a difference locally.
Yeah, and there's one thing I noticed looking at your website stuff, because I know you grouped alcoholism, addiction, and mental health together, and in fact they are very closely intertwined.
Yes.
And I have to put a shout out to MediaCom here, because part of their mission and our mission early on is really connected to the stuff that you were saying about how it was important to give a voice to members of the community, not only to benefit them in their healing process, but to give other people the kind of insights they might need to help people or help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's such a powerful element in this culture, hearing it from the from the people that have experienced it. And we have two massive cultures in the recovery community. We have the individuals that have recovered and are in recovery.
Yes.
And we have the individuals who lost loved ones because of the problems that you or other people might have recovered from. That's a really interesting bringing together of two separate populations that I really see as openly done with what I've seen in your Mobilize recovery stuff.
Yeah, I actually see it as all one community, this one connected community that has these interconnectedness because, and you're right, it might seem separate, but if you look at people that go to an MS walk or people that we raise awareness for autism, it's not just people with autism that are working to raise, it's family members, it's allies, it's the community coming together. And so I look at this very much the same way as any other health condition. And that's what I really kind of fell in love with, is that one of my first jobs in this recovery advocacy space that I really fell in love with was going out to New Jersey. And I really got to build an advocacy program. I saw a job description that said, come train a new generation of leaders around addiction recovery. And that brought me to New Jersey. And I really want to spend some time talking about that and how that's kind of evolved into Mobilize Recovery.
I love it. And so do I. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Aaron. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
Well, because it's the best. And that's true, because I've thought about that. I mean, definitely the fastest. And the biggest thing I hear most people talk about is the stability of it.
MediaCom's network is very reliable. We have a lot of programs in place that can monitor kind of issues that arise. That way we can fix them before they reach the customer.
Trust the pros. Get extreme internet starting at $9.99 a month for a year.
Malware and bots and worms, oh my. The wild, wild web can be a scary and complex place. And as our digital world expands, so too are the threats. Watch out, Trojan horse. That's why at MediaCom, we take security very seriously and monitor our networks around the clock to stop threats before they can affect you. Not today, rude kid. Not all internet is created equal. We build ours to keep you connected and protected.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're speaking with Aaron Kucharski from Mobilize Recovery, and he has a fascinating story of his own personal experience and how it stimulated interest in an opportunity that got him started on this part of his journey.
Yeah, and so I was in recovery for quite some time, and this is back in 2010 now. And so for me, it's 14 years ago, but I saw this job description that said, come teach a generation of new leaders in recovery advocacy. And so I moved to New Jersey just because of that job description. I moved there from Rhode Island, and within a month, I just spent time listening to people. I'm in a new state. I didn't know anybody in New Jersey. And so listening to people's experiences, and we're talking about family members, people in recovery, people that were still struggling, people that might have had mental health issues. And we really wanted to put together a training program that inspired people's leadership skills, and help them develop that story that we were just talking about on the last segment, where more people are out there telling their stories and inspiring public policy change, inspiring different changes within their community, because everybody has this great idea in their head, or many great ideas in their head. And for a lot of us, sometimes it can just sit there. And so what we found is that a lot of people wanted to help out, wanted to tell their story, but didn't know how. And so really creating an advocacy program around that. And by doing that, there's 21 counties in New Jersey. We said, wouldn't it be cool if we had a leadership team, an advocacy team in every single one of these counties? And over the 8 years that I lived in New Jersey, we really created this culture of being okay for people to share that story and make those changes. And we also learned that what was happening in one county was not necessarily the same as like the county next right over. And so that really evolved into this thought of Mobilize Recovery and Ryan Hampton. And we've had a lot of conversations over the years that, it's not necessarily that top-down stuff that's happening on the federal level that's something that impacts us, right? But a lot of people, it's like, how do I get the zoning board to want to have a recovery home? Or how do we get Narcan in all of our schools where young people might be struggling, right? And so it's about how do we take those ideas locally and teach people these community organizing skills to give people this path to go about creating the change that they want to create. And so that's at the core of what we want to do, is bring people together. And Mobilize Recovery looks different every year.
Now, did you encounter a lot of resistance or stigma, as we may call it, in trying to get out to the communities? Because it's hard, number one, for the individual to say, I'm willing to talk about this.
Yes.
But then all of a sudden you got people that are like, uh-oh, wait a minute, this is uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, and so you have that stigma, but then I've also seen that stigma go away through education and awareness campaigns and creating situations in which like a chief of police can listen to somebody that has lived experience. I remember, and I'll never forget this, we had this amazing event in North Jersey where we wanted all law enforcement to carry Narcan. And so what we did is we created this event where we brought law enforcement together, and we had law enforcement share about, we basically had officers that had already saved somebody's life with Narcan, and we had them speak to other law enforcement. And then we had the person who was saved by Narcan speak at the event as well. And I've never been in a room full of law enforcement officers that would just, and their families that just, tears in their eyes. And I've been at other events where, I see somebody just say, I've never thought of addiction as a health issue before. Right. And so by creating those experiences, by giving parents a voice, by giving impacted family members, by giving people in recovery a voice, that does chip away at that stigma. So yes, it exists. It's there. I don't think it's ever going to go away completely. But I have seen the language around recovery change, and the thought process of how people look at this change over the years. And so it changes minds and changes hearts the more people get out there and advocate.
That's got to be a pretty amazing experience. I can feel when you start talking about it, how your excitement level went up, because it's not something that most of us would think about in the course of our daily life. But then you realize that a human being in a position to save another human being's life.
Yeah. And that's why I think, like, to me, there is a difference between my own personal recovery and recovery advocacy. Like the recovery advocacy work that we can do and harness that community energy and give people these organizing skills to create these changes, that can go about making changes for people that you'll never meet in your life. And I think that's cool. When I left New Jersey, when I first got there, nobody knew what a recovery community center was. And then by the time I left, there's a recovery community center in every single county in New Jersey today, right? And so that all happened by getting people's voices out there and advocating for what they needed in their community.
This is great stuff. Well, we need to take another short break. When we come back, I'm looking forward to hearing more about this, as this is really exciting and new. Thank you very much. See you all after the break. Again, this is not stuff you want to pass up. See you in a few.
Glitching.
I told you with our new Extreme Internet, it will be smooth streaming.
That's unbelievable.
Well, you better believe it, Missy.
I already finished streaming the whole second season of my show.
So start the third.
What the fast? That's really not frustrating.
I'll take that as a compliment.
You should.
I'm gonna get some ice cream. Do you want some?
With the drama-free reliability of Extreme Internet, you'll have to create your own. Get super fast internet with whole home Wi-Fi for as low as $24.99 a month for a year.
You told me not to talk to strangers. You told me not to cross the street without looking both ways. You told me not to touch the stove.
You told me not to do drugs.
You told me not to drink and drive.
You gave me so many messages about how to stay safe. Why didn't you keep me safe by properly storing your gun?
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're with Aaron Kucharski. And today, like we often do, we ask guests to share some of their stories, things that have moved them and fuel their passion, maybe even their tears, as we've heard. And Mobilize Recovery is doing some really exciting stuff with this bus tour. Aaron, please tell us more about that.
Yeah, and so we did a bus tour in 2022, and we didn't know what it would look like. We didn't know if we would ever do it again. It was a lot of work, a lot of details, and so doing this cross-country bus tour in 2024 that starts September 20th and runs till it starts in Los Angeles September 20th, and it ends October 11th in the DC area, and just 25, 30 stops in between, going from West Coast to East Coast. And so we normally bring advocates to one space and create a program for people, give people community organizing skills. And this year, we get to see how those community organizing skills translate to their actual communities. And so this bus tour really kind of meets people exactly where they are, goes to the community, and we really work to tell a different story in every single one of these events. Looks different. We wrap the bus in recovery messaging, and people can sign the bus with their recovery date. You can write a message of hope. If you lost somebody and want to write a message of remembrance, it's really this traveling art piece, honestly. With that people kind of make their own. And so the bus tour this year is going to look drastically different than the last time because of the communities that we're going to. I'm happy to share, and I know that you talked to Ryan Hampton about this, that the bus is coming to Iowa on Wednesday, October 2nd from 2:30 to 6:30. I think at some point, one of us just said, wouldn't it be cool if we parked the bus in a cornfield or something and brought people together, and that's really, you know, how we ended up making sure that we go through Iowa and have an amazing event in Iowa at Bart's Farm in Marion, and that specific event, we're excited about it because it's celebration. There's a local element to it. I know Charlie Engel is going to be a special guest there to share his story. And so the local organizers there have done a fantastic job of getting a lot of folks involved and putting together a program that I think people are going to enjoy for their time there.
That's really fantastic, because I know Ryan talked about it, and you know, it's just sort of like a rock band touring. I mean, you just show up and everybody jumps out and the fun begins.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, the first bus I think that we had was originally Aerosmith's bus tour, and it was a rock. It is that kind of bus. You see the presidential style buses, the bands, the touring buses. It is that big. It's that bus.
That's very cool. Now, what have the audiences been like on the past tour? You haven't started this one. I mean, does it get? What do you see? Do you see families? Do you know?
Yeah, and
church
so
groups. I don't know what comes out for this event.
The one that Iowa is a definitely a family friendly event. Like, there are ones that are more family friendly. There's some that are more like policy heavy. Like, sometimes it's a town hall, sometimes it's a celebration, right? And so the audience is totally different at every single one of these events. You know, sometimes we go to Recovery High School and talk to students, and so the bus is really about creating moments for that community. And that's the first thing that we do when we start talking to local partners is, you know, what is the story that you all want to tell? What do you want this to look like? And that's where we start. And so the bus really kind of helps to amplify, some of the solutions that are happening in that community. I think a lot of times we kind of think about the fact that everything's siloed. There's these folks aren't working with these folks, and I think Mobilize Recovery and the folks that have really understand the spirit of it over the years have not only just had events, but continued to work with the people that they met at those events and the organizations that they met at these events. And so that's what I like about this tour, is that there's a lot. You can organize and organize and organize, right? And you think it's going to be one thing, but it's the moments and the connections that you build at each one of these stops. And it's the time that people take to spend time with the bus, read what's on there, write your own note. And it's really just keeps creating these like amazingly just special moments for people that they're going to remember.
What a great opportunity for people to experience the voices of recovery and see, how it impacts their community, and see what other community partners are out there. Well, we're going to take a break, and I'm going to ask you to think about some ideas, some final comments, insights, and inspiration for our guests. So stay tuned. I look forward to hearing that. We'll see you all after the break.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back. Dad! You probably don't remember what you told me.
That was perfect.
But I heard every word.
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we learned how the landscape of recovery has changed and how Mobilize Recovery is taking on the challenge on the road across America with a stop in Cedar Rapids, Iowa in early October. Let's see what insights and inspiration Aaron has to share. Aaron, let's hear it.
The last thing I just want to leave with people, and this is something that I think about all the time, and in my own personal recovery, and I think it translates to what we're doing with this bus tour. There's this cornerstone of recovery that one person can help another, or people can be responsible for healing their communities and being part of the solution. And so the thing that I like to think about a lot is that ripple effect. And I think about it a lot, especially this year. I lost my stepfather May of last year, and he was the first person that brought me into a mutual support group meeting. He was the first person to really just have conversations about recovery, and he passed from cancer. But I shared that because, as somebody that was my stepfather and the first person that I really learned about recovery from, the things that he taught me in terms of being kind to others, helping other people, listening to people, it lives inside of me, right? And so I try to keep that close in the interactions that I have, because I talk to a lot of people in recovery. I talk to a lot of people that are still using drugs, a lot of people that are still struggling with mental illness. A lot of people that are dealing with housing and healthcare insecurities, and I listen to them because I think a lot of times people do not, and so I think that as I hold that value of and remembering that there's that ripple effect, because if he didn't have those conversations with me 20 years ago, then I don't know. I might not be talking to you, right? I think about that sort of stuff all the time. And he passed away with over 30 years in recovery, and passed away peacefully, and a life fulfilled, that he was able to teach others around him. And so I take that on a personal level, that ripple effect, but I also think about it in terms of the community organizing. And the Mobilize Recovery work that we do, because you just don't know what can be inspired at these events. You don't know who's going to meet who and who's going to go on to do great things. just because a bus rolled around and somebody got curious about it. And it is unlike anything. It's hard to describe the experience of this until this bus is in front of you and you spend some time with it, and listen to some of the speakers and enjoy the atmosphere. And, I know that Iowa's going to have music and resources. And it's gonna be, I like the ones that are fun. And the Iowa stop's gonna be fun. I know that you all have the registration page and to share with people. And so, this event is created by the people that go to it. That's part of the magic of this. And so
if I might add,
yeah,
the people, the lessons learned in recovery and the testimonials and the resources, they can apply for somebody recovering from a period of high anxiety or stress in their lives or depression. It doesn't have to be substance abuse. I mean, in this essence, many people are recovering, and this is a family that through actions like Mobilize Recovery is coming together and realizing they can help each other.
Yeah, these events are open to anyone. You do not have to be in recovery from alcohol or substances, or you just have to, I mean, you don't have to anything. But a lot of us are healing from something. Okay.
But they can just come if they're curious.
Absolutely. And people have it, when we did the bus tour in 2022, it's just like we had events where we get nervous, like who's going to show up? Is anybody going to show up? And people showed up. It's just amazing. And again, it's hard to explain until you're in it, until you're there. And so I encourage everybody watching this to take a minute, talk to your friends and family about the Iowa Mobilize Recovery bus stop, register and show up.
And I plan to be there, and I will be registered. Thank you for joining us today, Aaron, and thank you all for watching us today. Check out our website, ahealthyiowa.org, and keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. On MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.